So, I went to go see Avengers Age of Ultron. It's written and directed by Joss Whedon, and it stars a whole barrel full of folks. There's Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, James Spader, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Elizabeth Olsen, and Paul Bettany. That's a lot of folks, and that's just kind of the major players here. There's a ton of cameos to boot. The general idea here is Iron Man's still shaken by the events of the first Avengers movie, and he has a real strong desire to protect the world, right? So he does that by trying to create AI and a bunch of robots to protect everything, because he's never seen a science fiction movie, apparently. Along with that, the Avengers go and they track down Loki's staff from the first movie. In analyzing the staff, Iron Man and the Hulk find out that, hey, that gem in it really seems to mimic a computer program, AI, right? So let's analyze it and use it for our own purposes. And as is probably expected, things go horribly, horribly wrong, and they create Ultron, who's kind of the teenage, snarky, sarcastic Ultron, but it's still Ultron. So I'll say this right up front. I enjoyed the first Avengers much more than I did this one. This one has problems, they persist throughout it, there's not really much that you could have done to fix the issues without adding a ton of time to the film. That said, it's still a lot of fun. Joss Whedon knows his superheroes. He really has that kind of witty banter down pat. It even extends to the villain. Ultron is honestly funny, which is something I wasn't expecting. The actors really know their characters by now. They feel very comfortable in them. Everything really works. The action is great, a lot of fun. It's just a fun, entertaining movie. It's just not really the best Avengers movie. What can you do? Now, I imagine most everyone's having the same sort of problems with a film that I am, which is to say, it's too short. Right? And that's not too short, I wish it were longer, no, it's they tried to fit too much story into too little space. So a lot of scenes feel very rushed and obligatory, they're setting up things for future movies, and they just don't have the time to really fit them into the plot that the film is trying to tell. It feels like it could have been at least a half hour longer. Which is funny because apparently the original cut of the film was over 3 hours, which is more than a half an hour longer than this. So I guess it holds up. It just needed more time to develop the characters. I mean, not only is it dealing with all the Avengers characters, it has to introduce a villain, set up the villain, right? Add three new characters: the Quicksilver, Wanda, and the Vision, right? Has to build those characters, develop them for future movies. It just feels very rushed, which is unfortunate because when it actually has these character moments, and it has a lot of them, they're really very well done. It's just, if you blink, you pass them by. It's unfortunate. I wish the studio would have let him have that 3+ hour movie because it would have been fantastic. I'm gonna have to just settle for the Blu-ray when it comes out, which apparently is going to have, the extended version along with an alternate ending. So I'm looking forward to that one. The second issue is Ultron, unfortunately. It's a problem that so many of the Marvel movies have had, which is they have very weak villains, and Ultron is no different, which is a shame because in the comics he's really kind of fantastic. Here he comes across like a snarky, sarcastic teenager angry at his dad. It just, ooh, you love it, I'm gonna destroy it for you, ha ha ha, and very sarcastic. He's very funny, James Spader does a great job, it's not a menacing character, it's not a character that has any real sense of threat to him, right? He's just a snarky teenager, and I find that hard to believe is this great villain. It's unfortunate. I wish they'd done a better job with him. I will say, spoilers, maybe kind of a little bit, but there was at least one scene in that movie where it looked to me like Ultron could have lived. Maybe. Probably not, but I really don't like how Marvel keeps on killing off some of these characters. They're going to run through their roster eventually, right? Yeah, so not a huge fan of Ultron as the villain of this movie. maybe he could have been set up to be a villain later on, but he just didn't have the oomph to really make me fear for the heroes. What can I say? Oh, and there's a romance subplot in this movie that came way out of left field for me. I don't know, it just didn't really... I mean, it was well done, the actors did a great job, but there was no setup. It was just like, all of a sudden, whoo, romance! Now, that said, if you like action movies or if you like comics, none of that is nearly enough to sink this film. It's still a lot of fun. Joss Whedon knows his comics. It's really just wonderfully, wonderfully well done. I enjoyed the story. The characters are vibrant, full of comic book wit and life and banter, and it's great. And they really feel like heroes. They go out of their way to protect and defend and get everyone to safety, even to their own detriment. It's what I want to see in a comic book movie, and it's handled very well. If any of that sort of stuff is even remotely entertaining to you, go see this movie. It's just solid fun for 2+ hours. Well worth the price of admission. So, yeah. Until next time, folks. Enjoy film. So, I went to go see The Age of Adeline. It's directed by Lee Tolan Krieger. He brought us December's End and The Vicious Kind. And it stars Blake Lively and, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but Michael Huisman. It's Dutch, I think.